Perhaps we are overreacting, or perhaps there is a real concern that the European Union is trying to interfere with the next election. But then this government runs this country. If it does not want an outsider to come in and to look over the shoulders of the election commission, then there's nothing that the EU can do. But then the uproar over the so-called interference by the EU should be considered in all the respects that this issue deserves. First of all, there's a draft of the so-called MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, submitted by the EU office in Bangkok to the Thai Election Commission. The wording, if you read between the lines, is quite worrisome. Apart from the normal request for security, safety for the EU officials or observers, this draft makes it very clear that the delegation from the EU wants to have the right. They may not do it in practice, but they want to have the right to attend every meeting and to observe every stage of the organization of the election. It sounds scary, because if you allow any foreign groups of observers to say that I have the right to monitor every stage of the election planning, of the execution of the election, of the vote casting, of the ballot planning, of the vote counting process, then of course you feel like that you are having a group of outsiders dictating, not observing. Therefore, you heard Foreign Minister Nit Pibun Songkram screaming hell, saying Thailand is not a failed state and nobody can teach Thailand how to vote. I would say it was a bit overreacting. But then this is a sensitive time, and the Foreign Minister of Thailand has every right to be paranoid about being seen outside the country of Thailand being a failed state, and that the EU can say, I want to monitor every stage of the election process. But if you sit down and think about it calmly, there's nothing wrong with inviting outsiders to come and observe the election. In fact, a lot of countries have done that before. Even some members of the EU have done that, just to make things transparent, just to make sure that the process, especially the democratic process, can be scrutinized by everyone concerned. In Thailand's case, this upcoming election is very important for its own image and its claim to go back to democracy. So we should open wide the door of the country, invite everyone who wants to observe. Just make sure that there's nothing that would make the Thai people feel that we are now under the scrutiny, under the watchful eye of certain countries who may think that they can visit any polling booth and tell an election official at the booth to do or not to do something that they consider improper. I can see some practical difficulties already now. If the EU delegation, and they say they want to send about 200 people at least, that is perhaps too many. You can see the problem if a certain EU official walks into a polling booth, starts to speak English to a local Thai official at the polling booth, and tells him or her in a loud noise saying, this is not right, this is right, then that will be bad. Bad for both the EU's image and bad for Thailand's attempt to appear to be very fair and frank about the whole election. My conclusion, therefore, is don't panic over this EU's request to come and monitor the election. Make it an open affair, invite everybody else, but also make sure that not some countries have the right to get an MOU signed, while the others are simply observers with no particular say in observing our elections. In other words, make the level playing field a thing for everybody, EU or non-EU. And please do not force Thailand to sign an MOU that allows you to do anything that would appear to be controlling rather than observing this election.